Leon,
Hello, hello.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We've got Leon on the pod today, so I thought I would introduce you to Leon and his position here at Music Valley. So Leon's actually been an incredible addition to our team over the last 3 years, and in this session I'm going to walk you through his rise and all the different stages, and I'm going to also ask Leon about some of the turning points and challenges along the way. So welcome to Inside Music Valley. Leon, how does it feel to be here, man?
Yeah, surreal. It feels, pretty cool. I'm always in the production side of things, and now being in the interview side of things it's quite a big change. It is awesome.
Nice, brother. Well, look, I met you about 3 years ago. I remember jumping in Studio 2, having a bit of a chat. One of your musician friends had referred you and said, yeah, this is probably who you're looking for. We're looking for an instructor at the time. We had a chat about what your direction was. So why don't you take us back, post, I think you just finished at uni.
Yeah.
And where were you at that stage?
Yeah, so I was at my very last trimester of uni. So I did an accelerated bachelor course of 2 years. And I ended up having to extend it by 6 months just because burnout. And during that time, I was working at a construction yard, like warehousing, pick packing. And I don't work there anymore for a reason, definitely obvious reasons. And I remember the day I left, I kept telling them, don't put me on at 4 a.m. And they put me on at 4 a.m. So I just slept in. Then 3 hours later, I got that termination letter. And it was around summertime. So I had about a summertime of no employment and just thinking, what am I going to do? I'm almost done with my degree. I had some direction, but just because you were in that uni burnout phase, I didn't want to do anything. I was very overwhelmed with emotions. And I remember getting a call from my friend, and he called me just saying, hey, there's this place called Universal School of Music, now called Music Valley. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's this place? Where is it? Thinking it's all the way in Brunswick. And he's like, no, it's in Point Cook. You should go there just to look. And I applied. I thought nothing of it. Honestly, it was an application of, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Such is life. And I think the day after you called me, it was something ridiculous. Like I got a call. I was making lunch, heard my phone buzz. I'm like, this is an unrecognized number. This close to not answering it because I was getting spam calls around that time.
Right.
And I answered it. And then, I ended up in the interview. Biggest thing I remember is we talked about emotional intelligence. And the one thing I remember was about confrontation. And instead of coming directly in an aggressive way, I came put my shoulders below you, and let's see if I can mimic it. I was like this. I was like, we have a problem and a solution. Let's discuss this. And I think I remember telling you exactly like this. Let's discuss this. I have a concern. And then we role played. And then, I think right after that, you offered
was this a role play that I requested?
Yeah, you requested a role play,
Yeah, okay. I thought this was part of your interview strategy. Sorry.
No. Yeah, this was a role play that you gave to me during the interview.
Yeah.
And, that was a big portion of the interview. I remember I showed you my skills on guitar, and you were like, I don't care about that. So I just care about this side of things, the emotional intelligence side.
Cool. So that leads me to, let's talk about that. Let's unpack, why, firstly, I've probably hired well over 100 musicians over the last 16 and a half, 17 years almost now. One of the things that I really look for is that emotional intelligence, because everyone's got good technique. Yeah. Everyone's got talent. They're the things that get you sort of recognized, but not in for the long term. And so we're looking for always team players that understand, how to have confrontational conversations and how to have realistic take on feedback, give feedback. That's how you grow. Yep. So it was one of the first things I thought, okay, let's put you to the test. Seems pretty eager, seems pretty well connected. It was actually quite a good, a way to understand where you're at in terms of emotional intelligence, being able to handle a conflict scenario that I gave you. Having a student potentially come to you and they have a challenge, and then all of a sudden you have to resolve that challenge. That's the next level skills that I think, and I'm not sure if you would agree on this, but in my years of experience running a business, they're the key skills that allow team players to thrive, not just survive.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
So you'd finished at Collarts around the time. So tell us about the journey, from Collarts. You'd came in and I think we'd offered you like a type of internship role where you shadowed Jake. So tell us about that experience and sort of how you then, because you have never really any teaching or coaching experience prior to that, right?
Not necessarily. I had very minimal just at-home teaching experience, just from people who've requested saxophone lessons.
Right.
And I've given them, one-to-one in my bedroom and everything. And it was okay, but it was extremely minimal, and it was very curriculum based on their curriculum. But I never had worked in a structure where this is the outcome that we need for these students. You need to be able to deliver that. That was a completely new experience. Again, coming from warehousing, the only KPIs I knew was pack 3 containers with 2,000 boxes of Jack Daniels, and then your shift is over.
Right.
So that was the frame I was coming from. And yeah, it was a completely different experience. I remember the very first lesson I had, Jake was in the corner, and I didn't know he was there. So he must have snuck in, as I realized, or he must have been there and I didn't notice. I was just so nervous for the first student. And I was asking this student, how are you? What do you do? And everything. In my head, I thought I was asking great questions. And the 30 minutes went by, and then Jake came to me and he's like, "It sounded like you were interrogating that kid."
Yeah.
And I was like, and I remember just having like my heart sunk, because I was so used to getting feedback for music, for leadership in music. I'd never gotten feedback for teaching.
Right.
And I remember just an instinctual gut wrenching feeling like, oh, I've mucked that up.
Right.
I'm out of here. And it was just an insecurity, like, oh no, my first day and I've ruined it. And he's like, no, it's fine. My first day was like that too. Here are some steps, never ask in an interrogation way, always have a conversation. So I was asking questions, but not actually listening to their answers. It was just question, rather than having a conversation.
Mm.
And that was one of the big things that took from Jake. Definitively is that idea of this is a collaboration. Even though I am teaching you, end of the day, in a mentorship way, not in a boss or teacher way, like I need your feedback so I can help you improve better.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe circle back to that whole teacher versus coach and mentor approach maybe a bit later. But on that, it's funny you said that, because Jake was in a similar situation when he started. He was actually working in an alcohol shop, serving alcohol.
Oh yeah, well, there you go.
So never had any formal teaching experience, and but a phenomenal songwriter, and had done a lot of production stuff. And then just giving him some basic tools and templates. And this is the thing. So this is kind of part of behind the scenes of what I've had to build over the years, not having really done any formal training in masters in teaching or anything like that, coming through from a musician, having some corporate background in working at Telstra and sales and things like that as well, helped me get structure around sales and email and conversations and agreements. But in terms of education, that was all through a sort of a personal development coaching world, which was a whole nother world of education that I sort of through the years brought into Music Valley, and used elements of training and assessment and curriculum assessment, but made it really simple and easy to follow for people like yourself and for Jake, and it's worked out okay. So on that note, let's just talk about those early days. So for those listening who don't know you, tell us about yourself. So you're in a couple of bands.
Yep.
What are your specialties? I think you've played for the King of Guitars. Like, tell us a bit about Leon, the House of Leon.
Yeah, well, let's start from the beginning. I picked up music from the age of 12 in Year 7, 2015, and I had no formal education of music at all. In fact, pretty much before then, I would go outside on the street, just play around, play video games, play tennis against the wall. It was very almost anti-music. I would sing for fun. I actually really loved Elvis Presley as a kid, just because of my grandparents. And from there, I realized how far behind, or at least mentally, I thought how far behind in skill I was to everyone. So I made it a mission to just practice all the time. And it was in the way of pride rather than in the love of music, because I would also get told, oh, you're not good at this, you're not good at that. How do you not know that yet? And it was just very little things, very little jabs and comments every so often. Anyways, throughout high school, I ended up getting one bursary in my first year of playing saxophone, and that was a scholarship to get free lessons for I think a term or a semester or something. And I got certain privileges. I was allowed in the music room whenever I wanted, and I would definitely abuse that. I would practice all the time.
You were allowed in the music room?
Yeah. outside of teacher, permission. I had a lot of privileges and
access. Yeah, wow.
Through that, I never had this idea of satisfaction. So I would keep practicing. I always felt like I had something to prove,
right?
In a very very prideful way. So as I progressed through high school, I did my first gig at 16, and it was at 16 I decided I wanted to become a musician. To the disarray of my father, he definitely did not like that, and we'll go back to that. It's pretty funny. And at 17, I got the second bursary in my high school. And it was at that moment when I had a materialized success or image of success in my hands. I'm like, I finally proved these guys wrong. I can solo. I'm officially, I can play whatever. I'm officially the best in my school.
Right.
This is the second bursary that proves it. And yet I still felt dissatisfied. I still felt like I needed validation from someone to say, you're good enough. You can relax. You don't need to prove anyone anymore. So I kept going through this, and I chose call-outs. So I chose call-outs because I didn't need an ATAR.
Right.
And I thought, great, I don't need an ATAR. I don't have to focus on my final exam, so I can just focus purely on music. And then as I was doing research before I made my final decision, I found out they were located in Collingwood / Fitzroy. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I think that's where all the musicians are. Great. I'm like down the road. Then I later found out that Jesse Hooper, who ran Collards, was in Killing Heidi. He was one of the founding members. And Killing Heidi was a famous band in the late 90s, early 2000s in Australia. Didn't mean anything much to me. I just thought, great, networking. Sounds good to me. Still had this idea of seeking validation. And I would always practice. I remember sending all my material. I did about 3 or 4 takes of the same song, kept going.
Yep.
And, as I entered uni, I'd already had about 5 gigs under my belt, professional, paid gigs on top of the stuff I did with high school. I had a sponsorship where I was getting free servicing from a local serviceman in Caroline Springs. And I ended up doing my degree. I was well ahead of everyone in theory. And I was around a little bit ahead, if not the same level in terms of playability. My tuning sucked, but we kept going. And I did everything right through towards my second final trimester, so the 5th trimester. And I remember just this burnout. I can't even describe it. And it was the moment where me doing music in terms of proving to someone that I can do this, the wall hit me. I had no fuel left of pride. And I heard a great quote where shame is not the opposite of pride, but it is the source of pride. And then through, self-analyzing myself, I realized I was shameful because I thought I was worse than everyone. So I kept pushing myself. I had to get better to prove these guys wrong because I was shameful. And I had shame that I didn't start at 8 years old like those guys. I started at 12. In my head, I was 4 years behind. And it was at the 5th trimester where finally that fuel, boom, ran out.
Right.
And it was around that time I was so close to giving up.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my mum, I was doing 15-hour days. And just talking to my mum and be like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm really struggling. I get up at 6 in the morning. I'm at uni by 8:30. I get home at 12 a.m. I sleep and then I restart. I'm doing this for the last year. I don't know if I have no money. Like, is it really worth pursuing what I love? And, I remember the voice of my old man saying, become a biotech engineer, chemical engineer. And I remember driving with him, be like, so you want to be a musician? Are you willing to sacrifice hours of your day for practice, for networking? Are you willing to understand that you will be lonely a lot? No one will understand you at one point, especially if you're creative. Are you willing to be your own boss? Are you willing to live not just below your means, but just well below your means to the point of, it almost looks like poverty on paper? It was just many things. Are you willing to, be a shark if you have to? And so many things. And I said yes. And, that memory came in. Me being the first one to finish university in my old man side was the only thing that kept me going. So what I did from trimester 5, I went to the student coordinator office and I said, I want to break up my last trimester. I want to do half theory get all that done, which cut my subject in half. It was amazing. And then I had about a 2-month break. And then I was able to do the performance side. And it was in the performance side where I joined here. And it was around that time I had this almost nullified road of, I've been doing music purely for pride and hatred. I have never done this for love. And this is interesting. And I came in here, and then when the first thing I saw, do what you love. And I'm like, I don't even know what that feels like yet.
Right. For those of you listening, do what you love. Core value number 1 here
Yeah.
at Music Valley. Yeah. So if you don't do what you love, you don't fit in, basically.
Yeah. And I remember seeing that and just thinking, I don't think I've actually played music for love in a long time. There's been pockets here and there, but, it's mostly been done to prove something to someone. And then through here, sitting with Martin, actually. Martin was the catalyst, the bridge of, hey, there's a new world to music other than just playing flashy and playing everything. And he gave me this quote, this gun on the table, boom, it's your last day. You have to play for me right now. At the end, you're going to die anyways. So you have a choice. Play all your flashy stuff that you really like, Leon, or actually play like Leon. And when he told me that, I went straight into Studio 3, turned off the lights, turned on the nice little red lights, the little lamps, and I just played. I think I had an hour break between the students, so I just played for the whole hour.
I think I remember that.
Felt like 5 minutes. And I came out, tears, tears coming down, dried up, and I'm like, wow.
Did you play on his reed?
Yeah, that was another time. Yeah, there was 2 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, just dried tears coming down because I was removing this pride and this shame from me.
Wow.
And Martin was the initiation for that.
Wow.
And being like, he gave me the validation of saying you're good enough, you have the skills now, but you're not happy. I can see it in your eyes. And then he gave me, he gave me what I was hearing, what I wanted to hear the entire time. You're finally good enough. You don't need to prove to anyone you're good.
Wow.
So now just play. Just enjoy it. And then now I sit here, and then I swung so far the other side where I was at peace, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not practicing. And now I've come back, the last 18 months of, hey, I'm now in the middle ground. I'm loving it. I'm improving for the love of improving, not for proof of concept or not to prove to anyone. But I understand I'm exactly happy and I'm exactly where I need to be right now in my life. And I can see the future without any negative feeling. I can look at the past without guilt.
Great. That's a really great insight, and for 23?
Yeah, 2024, yeah.
2024. Again, back to the emotional intelligence, just, even the ability to reflect on this is, reflection is the highest form of awareness, and you've been able to really reflect on yourself and your past and use that in such a way to move forward. What I want to know, firstly, is tell us about your music industry experience to date in a couple of sentences. I know you've played at some great gigs. How often are you gigging? Where are you gigging? Give us in 2 to 3 sentences a summary of that.
Yeah, I'm gigging about twice a week, roughly, either jamming or being paid. I have gigged from the smallest bars in Brunswick to Hamer Hall to 2 sold-out shows. I have performed at the biggest hotels, the Langham Hotel, the Hyatt Hotel, to very high-level people within Melbourne's sector. And then also I have played for very high-level international people such as the King of Qatar, such as Qatar Airlines, and I've collaborated with some upcoming artists who beyond me at this stage. So yeah, I've definitely been in and out of many circles within the industry.
And you're in Quincoction is one of your bands?
Yeah, so one of my original band is Quincoction.
Yep.
I play in another band, a jam band called SFF, Studio Faraday Family. Another one is playing a salsa band called Salsa Casera. And then I also am essentially for hire for almost as a mercenary. You call me, I need this done, and I come and do the show.
Cool. And we sometimes jam out on the Dream Team here at Music Valley as well. Awesome, man. So let's go deeper into your transition. So, in the space of 3 years, you've gone through about 4 different types of promotions here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's walk the listeners through that
Yeah.
and some of the challenges you faced each time you kind of had to be given, you were given a new responsibility. So the first thing is, learning to become a great educator.
Yep.
And within 6 months, you had that down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we had a conversation. I said, okay, I need someone to help with the studio management side of things with our hires on the weekends and throughout the week. So you're keen to take on that role. So how was that for you when I said, look, are you ready to take on next level?
It was interesting. I wasn't expecting it. I thought I'd stay an instructor here forever, to be honest. I didn't think much of it. And after having that conversation, I actually needed quite a little bit to think about. And I remember when I said yes, I still had that doubt of like, am I making the right choice? Am I not? The hardest thing was I had the skills already. I knew how to run a board. I knew how to run a studio to an extent, like how to move a studio, how to move gear, what the gear means. I just had never done it in an actual environment yet. And the scariest thing was I was so terrified of messing up. And I messed up so many times to the point where I ended up stop being scared of messing up, which inadvertently made me mess up more because I started getting complacent. So it was almost a balancing ground of, I know what I'm doing, but why do I keep messing up? What's going on? And the hardest thing was the big productions. We would have church productions come in, and then they'd have like a 20 million input request, and I'd have to be like, we only have 16 to work with. And in real time, I had to think like a producer and be like, do I need to use 10 microphones on the drum kit, or can I go with just 2? Can I put a room mic, and can that pick up the sound of the guitars? And it was just through trial and error experimentation that I was like, all right, 2 mics on the drum kit works. Put in a room mic at the other side of the room and just flooding it with reverb does the job. Oh, wow. And then as soon as I mix it together, it sounds like a live recording. And that was the hardest challenge. It was just that quick on the spot, just problem solving. Troubleshooting, sometimes some things just, everything's running perfectly, and then 5 minutes before you have to play, it just suddenly dies. And you have about 30 seconds before someone's yelling at you or in your head of like, get this sorted to fix it.
Do you remember that we had conversations where, because one of our regular hirers comes in on Sunday mornings, and, I know that you have these boundaries about, not being contacted. And me having this conversation around just the responsibilities of like, if you're going to take on a role like this, like that essentially like your role is to make sure everything's smooth and set up so that none of these issues come up over the weekends. How was that process for you? Like being able to deal with, because I think one of the things I've noticed with you, Leon, is like you're constantly learning about levels of different responsibility, and I'm always wanting to, provide that for all of my team.
Yeah.
And I really love to throw people in the deep end.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I do that with my kids,
and
sometimes a day later I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the way I was raised with my dad, and I love it. In a way, I love being challenged, but not everyone has that same approach. So how did you, deal with that and having those tough conversations when I said, hey man, this is your, ultimately, if you really want to be the studio manager, you have to bear all that responsibility. You can no longer, throw it back on someone else.
Yeah. The hardest part about that was actually asking for help.
Right.
And because of the story of me coming through, I have to prove to someone, I was lonely. So I was like, I'll figure it out myself.
Right.
And I had to untrain that. And I think the first time I actually came to you for help and said, Steve, I'll be honest, I actually don't know how to do this. I was terrified. I thought you'd call me and be like, how do you not know how to do this? And then
what was that?
It was I can't remember. I can't remember the 100% the story, but I think it was just nothing in the studio was going the way I intended relative to a high. And I just messaged him and be like, I don't know what's going on. It's just, and I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I remember you came in and then you just boop, 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 and it was all done. And then you were so beautiful about me asking for help that it killed my perception of asking for help is not bad.
Wow. This is important.
Yeah. And that was really I was terrified for asking for help for you.
Right.
Because I thought if you gave me this role, I just had to knew it. That was in my head. I just had to knew how to do it. So I would watch videos, I would rewrite notes, I would do everything before. Like when we do a lot of pop-up park stuff, on the way, even though I knew the process of setting up a live show, I would repeat this same video from a channel called Audio University or something like that on how to set up a PA every single time driving into pop-up park. And if it's a 10-minute, 15-minute drive, and it's a 5-minute video, I'd listen to it 3 times, making sure I really know what I'm doing. But it didn't come from the idea of me not knowing what I'm doing. Came from the idea of I'm terrified to ask you for help. And if you gave me that responsibility, I should just know what I'm doing.
You've been on the other end of that because I also then asked you to train one of our teenage students. He's in one of our bands now. And he's come a long way.
Yes.
And, we've talked about SOPs and checklists and things. First it was all hearsay and here's what I do, and then all of a sudden I'm like, no, you need a checklist and let's do that. And then being able to train someone like Ritesh, through that process and seeing him, smash it now and he knows what he's doing. How has that been for you, being on the other end?
That has been, I think, the greatest learning experience for myself, to be honest. Everything you and I did, we didn't have to tell each other. At one point, we didn't need to talk to each other at the end of a hire. We just did it. You knew that I was focused on the audio and then you start vacuuming. And then as soon as we had Ritesh, obviously he's like pretty much a blank canvas. He didn't know anything. And the biggest breakthrough was I got a call, I think at 8 in.m, and from one of the hires, and I just had to come in and fix it. I was so upset. And I remember calling you and being like, I'm hanging out with my friends right now. It's 8 in.m, I can't keep doing this. And then you said, Leon, this is why a checklist exists. And I sat down and wrote the checklist and I said, okay, I'm going to make this dumb-proof, tide-proof, whatever. And I did it. And I kid you not, from the next hire to the next hire, no issues, because it was just foolproof. Every little detail, even details that I didn't think I needed, I imagined myself in his perspective, I just put it down. Instantly fixed it. And since then, I think there's only been a handful of little things where he's missed just because he's been so tired. Where he reads it, but he thought he checked it, but didn't check it. But it's not the actual checklist itself. It's just him being exhausted. And then that's obviously easier to forgive than not knowing what to do.
So that's awesome. So then we added the role of studio supervisor and manager, look after those things on top of the teaching and the training. And gradually we then moved into, it's about 4.5 years ago, we really, Martin and I, spent time to develop our first band, and from there launch a program to develop and build bands called Music Industry Pathways. And you were tasked the new role, the added role of band coordinator. So let's talk about, I want to fast forward now. Obviously that was a whole nother thing, because coordination and spreadsheets and back and forth is a whole nother skill. And, having worked with hundreds and trained a lot of other musicians and artists over the years, it's not a skill that they're comfortable with.
Definitely.
I'd say 95% of them just don't have it as a skill because they haven't needed to, learn how to coordinate, manage teams or manage projects as such, on a with a budget, with a financial responsibility, because you're being paid to manage a job, as opposed to your own EP launch. It's totally different, because you're investing in, the money's not really, the thing that's, you're not reporting to anyone. So how was that for you? And then maybe just tell us about how we ended up and how your experience was with managing the roster for Lit Festival a few weeks ago. So let's go from the beginning and how that was, and then to where it ended for you.
I had so much resistance hopping into the corporate side of the music industry. It was just nuts. I remember just thinking in my head at home.
What's corporate? When you say corporate in the music industry, what exactly does that mean?
It's more of the business side of things. So I was so used to performing, the performing language is completely different. And then just sitting with you, and then, I need this spreadsheet done, KPI. I remember not hearing KPI for years at that point. I was like, wow, what's a KPI again? I had to research it at
music?
home. I was like, KPI in music, I just learned the song. That's my KPI. Yeah, I remember having to actually research what KPI meant, and then you said SOP and KPI. I'm like, this is a new abbreviations that I have no clue what this means. And there was so much resistance just sitting in a meeting, a lot of resistance sitting into it, using a spreadsheet more than just for students, and actually having to build my own spreadsheets, opening up Google Excel, not knowing what to do, having to Google everything, every little shortcut, every little thing, just in order to the point of even coloring the boxes.
Right.
I had to research, I had to sit there and be like, what am I doing? And just telling the band, this is what we have to do, and this is how to do it. I had experience dealing with adults relative to that. Being the leader of Queen Coction, just telling we come here, we go there. But obviously with them, because I have a background of being friends with them, the language is different. I didn't know any of these guys. So then all of the ideas, I knew what to say, but I didn't know how to say it in the most professional way. So I had to learn how to say things in an extremely professional way, but straight to the point. So no corporate jargon to elongate the message, but just straight to the point. Here's where we go. Boom, 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 boom. I'll see you guys there. Any questions, let me know. And I guess from there I transitioned into, developing that skills good enough where you gave me the opportunity to do the Lit Festival. And it didn't hit me at the start. I didn't realize how big the opportunity was. I just thought it was like another stepping stone in a way. I thought it was a pop-up park idea. I was like, oh, great, pop-up park with bigger budget. Oh, great, this is awesome. I loved it. And then when I actually sat down and thought about it, I was like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm working with council now. Oh, this is a whole other world that I have never experienced in my life.
Essentially, for those listening, Lit Festival draws about 30,000 people over 10 nights. Yeah. It's won a few awards as well based in Werribee. So, we were honoured to receive the opportunity to manage 9 nights of entertainment there. And so, I said, let's put together a roster, and here's the budget, and one of the things we do is, as part of the managing bands, is we've got multiple bands, we have to also account for contingencies and fill-ins and people that don't know particular parts well enough to get to industry or gig standard. So we have spreadsheets, and a system, a lot of spreadsheets here at Music Valley.
Many.
But the devil's in the detail.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so when you first started, you're probably like, oh, yeah. And then maybe, I think there was a point where I said, Leon, have you got contingencies for this? Have you confirmed this? And I looked at it and I said, okay, I think I need to step in here and just make sure I've got every contingency, like literally about 3 contingencies for each person.
Yeah.
So how was that? Like, walk me through that. Like, those listening, if you're going to share anything about managing rosters, managing acts and live music and having that level of responsibility, what would you share with them?
There's 2 things. Where you said contingencies, always having a backup of the backup of the backup of the backup, all the way to Z. And then dedicating, when you initially get the job, dedicate about an hour or 2 hours to creating a system. I think because I came in early and you walked in on me building this roster, and you were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm actually dedicating some time to create a system, because I know this is not going to be a one-off. I remember saying that to you. I know this is not a one-off. If you've pulled this type of string, this means we have a good enough connection where we can't mess up, but either way, we'll still be getting these type of gigs continuously. So I said, I'm going to dedicate 1 to 2 hours creating a system where this is our template, or we just input these numbers here, boom, 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 and then we just rinse and repeat. So that's my second one, just create a system, dedicate 1 to 2 hours, create a system, because I've actually reused that roster for gigs outside of Music Valley.
And just for those of you guys who maybe not used to AI at all, it can just do it all for you in a single prompt. So if we said to AI, Claude, Chat, whatever, I'm managing a roster. It's 9 nights. I have 50 musicians. I have 4 acts. These are the dates. This is the budget. Put a system together for me to manage it all.
Yeah.
It will do it in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are way advanced, way ahead of even where we were 3-4 weeks ago in what's capable now using AI. But the most important thing for listeners is to understand, you need a system.
Oh, yeah.
And you need the architecture of what you're doing. And if you're not investing in that, you're going to be at the mercy of a lot of headaches and and
I think when you came in to step in to help with the roster, I think the fact that we had that system in place already, or that roster template, I mean, I'm talking out of your mouth. It must have been a lot easier to be like, okay, I see where Leon's thinking. Okay, I understand in a way. Okay, he made a mistake here. All right, let me fix that. Boom, boom, boom. Rather than create a completely new roster, I'd be like, oh, Leon didn't do anything. I try to make it an easy readable template. Here's the budget on the side here. I saw you adjusted some things. Be like, no, we'll do, like, this is how it should look.
Yep.
In a professional way. So I saw the adjustments and I noted that. I'm like, all right, great. I see where I made the errors. And now they're ingrained in my head.
Yeah. Okay, so basically managing, coordinating bands, sound, crew, musicians, obviously having to play, sometimes have to fill, most often we have to kind of get you to fill on bass or sax and play these different hats. And, I have to say, mate, you've done an exceptional job of managing all that. Like Martin likes to say, you're a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And lastly, the last conversation we had in November last year was about you potentially being the operations supervisor, which means, for those of you listening, we have procedures and operations amongst the team in everything that we do, and it's laid out in an SOP, standard operating procedure. And because you've done so well in all these areas, I saw an opportunity to say, hey, Leon, would you like to help me manage the team, the staff, to make sure that, checking in and doing all the procedures and staying on top of that. So, how was that for you, that next pivotal role for you to be essentially,
the HR.
Kind of the HR, yeah.
It's, I didn't actually know it was a HR offer, or like a kind of a HR offer, until I actually sat down with my partner, and she's like, so what are you doing? What's your role with this thing? And she read it and she's like, sounds like HR to me. And I'm like, what do you mean HR? Why am I going to be HR? And I remember asking her, I'd be like, why am I entrusted with HR? I'm the least HR looking and talking person ever. And Martin and I, if HR was dealing with Martin and I, we'd be fired in 5 minutes. Yeah. And then obviously I had some time to think. As you can see, the general rule of thumb, I need some time to think and understand my role. Sometimes I'll say yes and not actually realize what the role is until later. And so I said yes. I thought about the role after. And the hardest part was going to my mentor, Martin Case, and having to give my own mentor feedback. That was the hardest thing I had to do. Everyone else in staff, even yourself, I wasn't scared of giving feedback, because I already given feedback to you at one point.
So just for those listening, like, your job is to check in with the team, make sure they're following, crossing all the T's and I's, dotting the I's.
Objectives with the terms, students, everything.
Yep, not missing out. And we have a weekly rhythm that we go through, and you basically score them based on these KPIs from punctuality, scorecards, performance, and other factors.
The general idea is just making sure all scorecards have enough detail so no one calls you and asks for questions like, why did you write it like that? The general rule of thumb when it comes to punctuality, obviously just be on time. And here are some tools. Martin showed me the 25-minute timer, for example. Relative to communication,
Slack.
Yeah, Slack communication.
Respond to messages.
Just during your shift, if you have 1 minute between a student, just read it. And if you have another minute between the next student, just respond to it. Just respond to it during your time as you're working. And it's really the whole KPI idea is just making sure you're responding, you're coming on time, and your communication between students, between parents are just on paper. Biggest one, on paper. So there's a paper trail for everything. And
soft copy.
Yeah, soft copy. And then just making sure that it's legible. Like, it's actually, you can understand what's happening.
So then, take us back to that moment. You had to say, hey, Martin, I need to check that you're doing your job.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
This new, 23-year-old coming in
to a 50-something-year-old man.
3-year-old.
You can see me already sweating and reminding myself of the day. Oh, I remember. My gut was, oh my God, I'm feeling it again. I remember sitting him down and just looking at his scorecards and just being like, Martin, whoa, these scorecards. And I just said, look, I remember telling him to try and get myself out of it. I'm just the messenger. Don't kill the messenger. And he looked at me and be like, you're not the messenger. You're the actual HR guy. Sorry, buddy. You got to give me feedback.
Yeah.
And I just had to, just take it by the ball and just do it. I just had to be a man and just tell him, Martin, these scorecards are not good. Here's my scorecard for reference. And I remember showing him that, similar to coming to you, asking for help. I was so terrified of what he would say. You could see me like still feeling that feeling. Ooh,
Wow.
terrified. I mean, he's my mentor. He was the man that taught me how to actually love music, taught me so many skills here. And then now I had to almost fight him as a samurai and be like, now I've taught you the skills. Now, come challenge your master. And I had to tell him these scorecards are horrible. Here's how to fix them. And he took it. And he smiled and he laughed and he's like, all right, sure, let's do that, Leon.
Another limiting belief quashed.
Yeah, the limiting belief completely quashed, crushed. I have no fear of telling him that he sucks at something.
Cool.
But it's that initial stage.
Back to feedback, right?
Yeah,
it's giving feedback, receiving feedback, EQ.
Yeah, it's the hard. I mean, I understand for a man like Martin, a 23-year-old coming to you saying you suck at this, and they're technically your boss in one department. From his perspective, must be like, whoa. But then me coming from my perspective, not understanding that a man who could be the age of my father, in that distance, I'm his boss. And I have to give him feedback once a week and tell him, you suck at this, here's how to improve.
I notice you use the word boss, right? So a lot of people have this idea of boss. And I think speaking to a lot of musicians over the years, if they haven't worked in a team, sports team, right? Because often musos don't play in sports.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They have used to bands, right? Bands could be led by management, and they may not have worked in a real team environment in a corporate culture. So often we find there's this like hierarchy
negative
in their
feeling,
mind that does set these limiting beliefs.
Yes.
In being able to give and receive feedback and seeing the blessing in how a team actually operates.
Yep.
And being objective when it comes to giving and receiving feedback, not because you want to say I'm more talented than you,
not at all,
but because it's for the benefit of both parties.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother conversation. But from your point of view, what have you? What's one piece of advice you'd like to give to musicians or artists? Maybe just finishing a CollArts or at uni or whatever, and looking to branch out into the music industry.
Yeah.
Around that level of professionalism and working in a professional manner, what would you like to say to that person?
Definitely remove your ego out of it and stop thinking that someone will come and manage you and do everything for you. Like you're the next Bruno Mars or you're the next Taylor Swift. That was a lesson for me. Another one is learn the business language of the music business. If I were to speak the way I speak in the real estate business, I wouldn't last because I don't know their language. It's similar. It's like me speaking American English and Australian English. It's both English, but we have different pronunciations for everything. We say phrases differently. So learn a little bit of the business language, and that could be as simple as going on YouTube, watching a video of a manager, like a music manager, just talk about a release radar thing, 30-day release strategy plan, and just listen to what they're saying. Just get used to what that language sounds like. Because as soon as you enter the workforce in the creative industry, it's not going to be a new language that you have to learn. And that's another barrier that you have to overcome. It's now just focused on collaboration, but you somewhat understand the language. So it's an easier entry point. Obviously the other one is be incredibly open to feedback. Pause when you get feedback. That's a big one. So a lot of people are very reactionary when they receive it. So as soon as you receive feedback, just have a cue. Pause for 5 seconds. Like, whether you close your eyes, breathe, whatever, you can apologize after. It's better to ask for apology than to do what you do. And after you receive feedback, then as you've grounded yourself, give your response. Either a thank you, either maybe that, wrong context or whatever. But having that 5-second pause is just incredibly important. And then the other one is, as you receive the feedback, see if you can almost have a positive sandwich on top of that. So see if you can give at the same time. If you're like me who took a long time to actually give feedback because you couldn't receive it yourself, start in the mirror, like actually compliment yourself in the mirror. Trick your own brain into thinking that feedback is good, that eventually you will believe it and it's true. It's part of healing yourself through that to be able to give and receive.
So what's next for Leon now? I hear that you're wanting to venture into culture arts management.
Yeah. Funnily enough, it was actually Music Valley that showed me that opportunity for the first time. Through yourself and Martin, I'll consider both of you guys my mentors in this case. Showing me the business side, and then Martin very, very deep into culture and cultural appreciation of every culture. And how can I use that? That's always what he says. I don't care about you. I care about what you can do for me. Virtue of selfishness, directly from him. And, sitting with him for, 2 years, you end up speaking like him. And I've caught myself. People call me Leon Case sometimes if I have to fill in for him.
I love it.
But, it was through that, through Martin's idea of cultural appreciation, yourself in the business side. I thought to myself, well, I come from this Hispanic culture. Every single time I go and see my own culture, there is always street music, which is not bad inherently, but Australia only knows Hispanic culture, I would say, as street parties, closing off the street, what we call reggaeton, with like DJs going off, which is beautiful, but we are so much more than that. It's like you think of British and you automatically think of royalty, the Spanish, here I am, whatever. But South America, you just, I guess in Australia, they think of party. And I thought about it, I'm like, well, how can I leverage that? I'm connected with people who have been in the theatrical side and in the big stadiums of the Latin community, showcasing what we can do from a sophisticated standpoint. And I asked myself, I researched, I went to AI and said, I have these skills. I want to do this. What is this bridge? Like what is this called? And then he came to me and said, cultural and arts management. You will learn about grants, policies, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. It's almost like when Martin said, you're good enough. I had that. AI told me cultural arts management. I was like,
next step
oh my God, like boom, 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 boom.
Cool.
And I researched, I'm like, where can I get this? First place I thought about Berkeley because I saw Berkeley had it. And I said, there's two options. I study it online and I pay up front because I'm not an American citizen, or I go to America and just try it. And I thought, maybe not, it's too expensive. I saw the pricing for Berkeley. And I said, surely there's one in Australia. And then I saw Melbourne Uni. And I ended up seeing that Melbourne Uni, I think, was the only one in Australia that does that degree. Right. So I got so incredibly lucky that is in Victoria.
Yeah, wow.
Or else I would have had to, consider it, be like, maybe I go to New South Wales or something, whatever. But yeah, I was lucky enough to do it. I applied, thought nothing of it, similarly to how I applied here. And then I didn't receive anything for about 6 to 8 months. And then I remember coming home from the gym, incredibly hungry, so I went to my favorite Japanese joint, got some chicken katsu on rice, and as I sat down to talk to my partner, I saw an email saying offer letter, and I remember getting that, and I'm like, is this what I think it is? And I read it. Congratulations, you've entered, you've come to your cultural arts, you've been accepted, you start next year. And I remember telling you like an hour later, and the thing, I was so ecstatic. I was running up and down the shopping center, incredibly happy. And look, from that degree, my goal is to, again, pursue more of the Hispanic community. I even, my partner being Papua New Guinea, and even want to see if I can, merge the two together, because Papua New Guinea has an incredibly low population in Victoria.
Right.
So there's very little representation. Cool. And you can see it on my partner's face where she's like, she wants to go and see her own culture, but she can't. We have to go to Queensland. And it's like, well, why go to Queensland when we can just bring it here? How can I make that happen? How can I bring sophisticated Latin culture? How can I bring sophisticated Papua New Guinean culture, PNG culture here? How does that look? What does the music sound like? Can I merge the music together? All these questions in my head. And, how really, the future is that. How can I put that together? And that's my question now for me to solve throughout my degree and for me to pursue after.
Well, that's really interesting, because the second we had this conversation, it was late last year, and I realized the direction you wanted to go down. So for the last, 10, 15 years, I've been hugely involved in Point Cook, multicultural festivals. I'm now the president of the committee that runs a festival here for now, 8, 9 years. And Point Cook is the most multicultural suburb in all of Australia.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
And luckily,
and
boom,
I
boom,
know,
boom, yeah.
you know, like, for example, we've run heaps of events. You've been involved in the pop-up park events, the Latin, the African festivals.
Yeah, Kaleidoscope and all that, yeah.
All of that. And I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, do you want to come and meet the committee at our annual dinner celebration and meet the Deputy Mayor of Wyndham and the Troy, who used to write policies for the grants in Wyndham? And it's like, it was just, you know, it was a natural thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for you, Leon. I think,
Thank you.
This direction is definitely the direction that, the universe or God or, divine intelligence, or whatever you believe
it's
in,
all
is
fallen
brought
into
you
place. Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. Man, thank you so much for this interview. I've
Thank you.
really enjoyed it. If there's one last thing you want to share with people who are considering learning more about what it takes to become a musician for today's music industry, what would you say to them?
Read this one book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. The archetypes of the mature man, and even if you're a woman, read it and change every woman from man to woman to understand that we have archetypes in psychology and learn how to access them. So know when to be the warrior, when to be the king or queen, when to be the huntress, when to be the magician, the sorcerer, so you can be the best version for the environment.
Awesome. Thanks for coming inside the Valley.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If today's conversation sparks something in you, drop a review or send this to a person in the industry who you think needs to hear it. And if you're someone who's done playing small and ready to take your music or career to the next level, we'd love to talk. There's a link in the show notes to book a call with us. Let's explore how we can help you plan your next move and reach your goals faster. But most importantly, if you're listening to this right now, I want you to know I hear you, I see you, I appreciate you, and my team and I believe in you. With the right environment and the right team in your corner, anything is possible. I can't wait to see you again inside the Valley.